Good morning, everyone. It is my great pleasure to welcome Dr. Hanlin Wang to come back to Minnesota to give our first round talk in this new academic year. So he got his MD degree from Wuhan University in China and then came to Rochester, New York in Mayo Clinic to do his PhD study. I think after 3 years, and he moved with his mentor to University of Tennessee and finished his degree, finished his laboratory there, but came back to Mayo Clinic to defend his thesis. And then he did several years of postdoc, and then was recruited to University of Chicago for APCP residency, and also did his GI and liver fellowship there. In 2001, he was recruited to Washington University and promoted to associate professor in 2006. And in 2007, he moves to Los Angeles and become attending pathology in Cedars-Sinai Medical Center. And now he's the professor in UCLA and the director of the GI liver service and also the fellowship director. And he's a very productive academic pathologist, has more than 130 publications. He edited 3 books and then wrote like 17 book chapters. And I think every UCLA probably have several abstracts. Now, most of his work was done with the residents and fellows, so he's a great teacher and a mentor. I think the resident will benefit for his teaching section at the 10 o'clock. And he's active in many societies and is in the editorial board and also associate editor of some journals. And let's welcome Dr. Wang.
Thank you, Darby. It's such a great pleasure to be back to Minneapolis, because you just told Dr. Lee this morning, Minneapolis airport was my first airport that I landed in the United States. Actually, I layover in San Francisco, but my final destiny in my first trip to the United States was in 1988. So my mentor from Mayo Clinic actually drove to Minneapolis airport and picked me up from this airport. So this is my first airport, first city actually landed. And then I didn't realize that Rochester actually had a small airport, but at that time I have no clue. So but my mentor drove 70 miles from Rochester and picked me up from Minneapolis. So it's such a great pleasure to be back and meet all my old friends and meet new friends here. So thank you so much for the invite. So what I'm going to do is to overview some of the researches that I've done during my professional career since 2001. So my main interest is liver pathology, of course, also GI pathology, but most of my publications are focused on liver diseases, particularly liver tumors. And so to begin with, I want to present a case that I saw in 2003. Actually, 2 cases in 2003 when I was just in my first couple of years as a junior attending at Washington University in St. Louis. So this case was a challenging one to me at that time. So that triggered my interest in research in liver tumors. So this first case was a 42-year-old man who had a abnormal liver function test. So they did a CT scan of his liver. On his abdomen, they found a 8 centimeter mass in the liver. And then the patient did not have any history of chronic liver disease and no cirrhosis, and his alpha-fetoprotein level was normal at that time. So this is a liver biopsy from the liver mass, 8 centimeter mass. You can say even though WashU had a really good reputation in surgical pathology, but the histology was not that great. So a lot of colored artifacts in this terrible section, and the biopsy was fragmented. So, but we can tell this is a liver lesion because we could not find any normal liver structures and just look like a hepatocellular lesion. And then at high power view, you can say the lesion is a hepatocellular, and a lot of process artifacts make interpretation very difficult. Here's a higher view, and you can imagine this could be a well differentiated hepatocellular carcinoma, or could be liver cell adenoma. So at that time, we don't have many markers to play with. So the best marker, probably still the best marker nowadays, is the retinal stain. So of course we did a retinal stain. As you can see here, the retinal stain here is abnormal, and there are some widening or some loss of retinal fibers. So we favor this is a well differentiated hepatocellular carcinoma, but we're not terribly sure because the patient is kind of young and there was no underlying liver disease. So that was kind of bother us a lot. So we started eventually we called it well differentiated hepatocellular carcinoma with some comment. And here's another case also in the same year, like as Dr. Lee introduced, I joined WashU faculty in 2001, so just in my second year. So here's another case that I saw that year. It's a 55 years old woman. She had a long history of oral contraceptive use, which is a risk factor for hepatocellular adenoma. So she was found. She also had a chronic hepatitis C. Because of chronic hepatitis C, she underwent regular surveillance follow-up. So during her follow-up, just surveillance exam, she was found to have a 2.5 centimeter mass in the liver. And again, her liver was not cirrhotic, and her alpha-fetoprotein is slightly elevated, but it's not terribly elevated. So this is her liver biopsy. Again, the biopsy was not that great, and then it's a short biopsy. But even at low power, we can tell this is another case of hepatocellular neoplasm, because we don't see good hepatic architecture, and even at low power, we see some spaces there, and then like this could be dilated sinusoids or pseudoacinar structures. So at high power view, again, you can see it's quite well differentiated hepatocellular neoplasm, and it's just pure hepatocellular proliferation. But at high power, you can see some pseudoacinar structures there. So again, the differential would be well differentiated hepatocellular carcinoma versus adenoma because of contraceptive use. So at that time, this is from Dr. Zai's book, and Dr. Zai has been in the University of Florida for years. So this is a great department, and my former AP director, Dr. Papadena, was here too. So at that time, if you look at Zai's textbook, he said sometimes the differential diagnosis between these two entities, between well differentiated hepatocellular carcinoma and adenoma, is impossible, and only the clinical course established the true nature of the lesion. So at that time, there's really difficult to separate these two tumors. And then you look at another textbook, liver pathology textbook, Mark Swain's textbook, and he basically said the main difficulty lies in the distinction between liver cell adenoma and well differentiated liver cell carcinoma, and this may at times be impossible on the histological grounds alone. So at that time, we don't have many immunohistochemical or molecular markers to separate these two entities. So the best marker, like I said, probably was the reticulin stain. So this is a summary of diagnostic tools that we can use to work up for liver tumors for hepatocellular lesions 15 years ago in 2003. So again, best markers would be reticulin stain. And there are some markers like HEPA1 and CD10, polyclonal CA. They are markers to tell this is a hepatocellular, but they won't tell this is a malignant. the only markers that may help us to say, or this could be malignant neoplasm, will be alpha-fetoprotein, but the sensitivity, as you know, is quite low. It's probably about like 25 to 30%. And then CD34, there was a couple of papers about CD34 at that time, talking about the sinusoidal staining patterns. If you say a diffuse sinusoidal staining pattern, you think about hepatocellular carcinoma. But if you say patch staining pattern or focal staining pattern, you think about benign lesions like adenoma. But about 20% of adenomas can also have diffuse sinusoidal staining pattern. So you want to be able to separate the two lesions with confidence. And the beta-actinin, there are some studies about the beta-actinin, because beta-actinin can be mutated in about like 30% of hepatocellular carcinoma. So normally beta-actinin will show membrane stain in hepatocytes, but if you say nuclear stain, and then you favor carcinoma. But nowadays we know that may not be true because again, beta-actinin nuclear stain can be seen in a subset of adenoma. So at that time, there are not really good markers to separate or differentiated hepatocellular carcinoma from adenoma. So that triggered us to do some studies to see if we can actually find some markers that can be useful in clinical practice. So we set up a goal to say if we can identify some unique genes that can be used to distinguish hepatocellular carcinoma from or differentiate hepatocellular carcinoma from hepatocellular adenoma, and with the possibility to develop some immunochemical markers for our diagnostic use. So at that time, now it's about 15 years ago. At that time, gene chip microarray was still in its infancy. So WashU was one of the earliest medical centers that had a good tumor bank and also had this molecular facility with expert in the group. So we decided to do some collaboration with molecular pathologists to see if we can use this cutting-edge technology to say to help us. So fortunately, we found 6 adenomas and 8 were differentiated HCC in our tumor bank. So we have fresh tissue frozen. And then we, of course, did a standard microarray analysis, and then which tested more than 50,000 gene probes. And as you can see here, this is our initial data. So it's about 14 cases. If you look at our gene microarray data, basically no one can be able to tell the difference between where differentiated hepatocellular carcinoma from adenoma, because they look quite similar, which makes sense because they are morphologically similar. So if you just look at our raw data, it's really difficult to say our analysis can help us. So, but we, with the help of our statisticians and molecular pathologists, we'll be able to find 63 genes that showed at least 2-fold difference between these two tumors. Interestingly, about 57 genes were overexpressed in adenomas. There are only 6 genes were overexpressed in or differentiated hepatocellular carcinoma. So if you look at the genes that were overexpressed in adenoma, so most of them are involved in metabolism, in hormonal and growth factor receptors, which makes sense because we know adenoma are associated with contraceptive use. And then they are also involved in transcription factors, complement activation, cytoskeleton, and cell cycling. And if you look at genes, there are 6 genes that were overexpressed in hepatocellular carcinoma. They are more involved in DNA repair, cell cycle regulation, apoptosis, and cell adhesions, which again makes more sense because they are involved in cell proliferation and invasion. So we decided to pick up some selected genes to test them to validate them by RT-PCR. In that case, we actually found another set of tumors that were fixed in formalin. So we will be able to isolate RNA from formalin fixed tissue blocks. So we found 9 cases of adenoma and 9 cases of well-differentiated carcinomas. So we did RT-PCR. So we picked up 8 genes. Those 8 genes were chosen basically based on several things. First, based on their 40 differences between the 2 tumors. So we chose the genes that showed more differences, not more than 2-fold difference. And we also look at their absolute expression numbers because we want to find genes that show abundant expression. And we also look at if those genes have any biological functions. And then the last criteria we chose those genes is based on the commercial availability of antibodies, so we can test their the utility by immunohistochemistry. So these were the 80 genes were chosen, which include IGF-2, clustering, estrogen receptor, and PCNA, and some other things. So if you look at the comparison here between microarray and RT-PCR, and then you can say they basically show quite a good concordance, except for one gene that actually show some differences. Say here it's called paired related homeobox 1. By PCR, by microarray, we show we show a overexpression in carcinoma in comparison to adenoma, but by RT-PCR, the result is different because we show more abundant in adenoma. But if you look at the rest of genes, they are also similar concordant expression between microarray and RT-PCR. So if we use these 8 genes and then do additional analysis, and then we found that this is quite interesting to us because we actually found a difference here. So we will be able to separate adenoma from well-differentiated carcinoma here. So this represent carcinomas, here represent adenomas. So they actually can cluster. They show difference between these 2 groups. So use a panel of 8 genes, we're able to separate these 2 tumors, even though they don't really show too much difference in terms of the number of expressed genes. So next step we did was to validate our findings by immunohistochemistry. Again, this time we found a different set of tumors, which included 27 adenomas and 33 carcinomas. And we found commercially available antibodies for clustering, for PCNA, for IGF-2, estrogen receptor, and tropomodulin 1. So we tested 5 antibodies, 5 antibodies. And this is the results we did. And then, as you can see here, there's quite a significant difference between adenoma and carcinomas. If you look at the estrogen receptor, which is overexpressed, strongly expressed in adenoma, but is not overexpressed in carcinoma, which again is consistent with our microarray and our RT-PCR findings. And another marker that we're interested in is proliferating cell nuclear antigen, PCNA, which is strongly and diffusely overexpressed in carcinoma, but it's not in adenoma. And then another marker is IGF-2 or insulin-like growth factor 2, which is strongly overexpressed in adenoma, but is not overexpressed in carcinoma. So we thought these findings were quite interesting. And then if we compare the tumor with their adjacent non-neoplastic liver tissue, the results were also quite interesting. So again, if you look at the ER, estrogen receptor, adenoma shows some increase, but majority of tumors show comparable expression. between tumor and adjacent liver tissue. But in carcinoma, the expression is not increased, but instead is somewhat decreased if you compare tumor with adjacent non-neoplastic liver tissue. And then PCNA is overexpressed in 100% of HCC in comparison with adjacent liver tissue, so it shows overexpression. But in adenoma, the tumor and adjacent liver tissue showed comparative expression. So there are some differences between adenoma and carcinoma amongst different immunomarkers. So those are, next I'll show some examples of these markers, and this is IGF-2. So here's a case of adenoma that shows quite a strong expression of IGF-2 in their cytoplasm. But if you look at carcinoma, this is a case of hepatocellular carcinoma. It shows negative stain, but the adjacent non-neoplastic liver tissue shows some stain. So there's a decrease in expression in IGF-2 in HCC. This is an example of PCNA expression in adenoma. You can see there are some scattered positive cells, but most cells are either negative or just weakly positive for this protein. But if you look at the HCC, there's a diffuse and strong expression in the nuclei. So there's quite a significant difference between these two tumors. And this is clustering. Clustering, initially we thought that there's just like some cytoplasmic stain in adenoma. But if you look at the HCC, the stain pattern is quite interesting because in addition to cytoplasmic stain, there's also quite a strong canonical stain pattern. So this is similar to what we say for for polyclonal CA and CD10, but this staining positivity is quite strong in comparison to CD10 and then polyclonal CA. So this quite a unique pattern was quite interesting to us. And here is an example of HCC. Here's a HCC case with some steatosis, and here's a non-neoplastic liver tissue adjacent to the tumor. As you can see here, the non-neoplastic liver tissue, it shows just cytoplasmic stain. In tumor, you can see in addition to cytoplasmic stain, there's also quite a significant enhanced canonical stain pattern here. So if we we try to focus on this unique canonical stain pattern for clustering. So if you look at HCC, this canonical stain pattern was observed in about 70% of HCC, but in adenoma we say only 4%. In non-neoplastic liver tissue, none of them show this strong canonical stain pattern. So it's quite unique to HCC. And this 4% is also interesting to us because later on we found these tumors were actually had a beta-catenin mutation because there's a subset of adenoma that show beta-catenin mutation, which may have higher risk for malignant transformation. So what is a clustering? So clustering is a glycoprotein that has quite a wide range of cytoprotective functions, which include lipid transport, complement regulation, apoptosis, senescence, and tumorigenesis. Excuse me. So interestingly, in 2004, just like 1 year, we had our experiment. There was a paper published in human pathology that showed the clustering expression in HCC. So they studied 100 cases, and interestingly, what they found was about 70% of cases also show the canonical stain pattern. So here you have tumors that are either negative or cytoplasmic stain or cytoplasmic plus canonicular and canonicular. So if you add these two groups together, it's about 71%. That's similar to the number as what we just observed. So here's a clustering expression in HCC expression with correlation to patient survival. This is also done by this Korean group. and they actually found that HCC with canonical stain pattern may have a better patient survival, which we did not actually observe, but this is based on this specific publication. So we published our report results in American Journal of Surgical Pathology in 2005, and after that we did additional studies, and then this time we focused on 3 markers because we thought they are more reproducible and more interesting to us. So these 3 markers are clustering, IGF-2, and PCNA. So this time we include 150 non-neoplastic or 150 benign nodular lesions, which include adenoma, focal nodular hyperplasia, large regenerative nodules, and we also include more HCC this time. So this time we focus on immunohistochemistry, and the data was published several years later because the projects were carried on by several resident fellows, and they never. None of them actually got the project finished before they left. So eventually we got this project finished by one of the fellows. So in this follow-up study, we focus on 3 markers. So one of them is PCNA, proliferating cell nuclear antigen. And again, basically just this time we include adenoma, focal nodular hyperplasia, large regenerative nodule, and HCC. Again, PCNA shows rare strong and diffuse stain pattern in HCC, but this pattern is only rarely seen in benign nodular lesions. And again, say for adenoma, there are only 6% of cases show strong stain, but they are not diffuse. So the diffuse cases were also weak. So if you combine strong stain and diffuse stain, none of the cases show that pattern. And for IGF-2, again, we confirmed our initial findings. We found that in HCC, there's either a decreased expression or weak expression in comparison with adjacent non-neoplastic lesions. But in adenoma, we see more stronger stain in adenoma. So again, for IGF-2, we found a decreased expression in HCC in the majority of the cases. Here again is an example of IGF-2. Here's a non-neoplastic liver tissue on the right, but in HCC you see decreased expression. So for this marker to be useful, I think you need to have non-neoplastic liver tissue and tumor tissue in the same biopsy. The clustering showed a rare strong canonical stain pattern in about 70% of cases, and then this unique pattern is not found in adenoma, focal nodular hyperplasia, or large regenerative nodule. And then again, we call it enhanced canonical stain pattern, but when we submit this paper to this journal, and the reviewer think it's not should be called pericanonical, so we changed it in this specific article. So this is some examples of what we did in this particular marker for clustering. So eventually we found, with a more careful examination, we found that in benign liver lesions, sometimes we actually find some canonical stain pattern like here, but they are so weak, it's really hard to appreciate. Sometimes we don't appreciate it. So in some cases, we do see some benign canonical stain pattern. But in malignant, this canonical pattern is more enhanced and is much stronger than benign liver lesions or non-neoplastic liver tissue. So this is a direct comparison. This is if we find a canonical stain pattern in benign tissue, it's more like this linear and delicate, but in malignant tumor, the canonical stain pattern is much stronger. So this is quite unique to us. So after that, we did additional follow-up studies. So this is a collaboration with Dr. Hanlin in Geffen Medical Center in Philadelphia. And then they have a really nice tissue microarray there, which include probably over 1,000, close to 1,000 different tumors from all different locations. And in addition to that, we also try to include some mimickers for HCCs, like a clear cell renal cell carcinoma, epithelial or PComa, something that may be confused with HCC. So we did additional studies that include all these possible mimickers and also different tumors from different locations. So we try to say if this unique enhanced catalytic stain pattern for clustering can be observed in different tumors. And so what we found was, again, in this particular study that was presented in USCAP as a poster in 2016, we found that this enhanced catalytic stain pattern for clustering in 82% of HCC, but none of the other tumors showed this unique pattern. So this is quite encouraging to us. So we think this marker, this unique stain pattern can be useful to distinguish HCC from other tumors, which sometimes can be difficult on a needle core biopsy. Another study we did was to compare clustering with polyclonal CEA and CD10. We know polyclonal CEA and CD10 also give rise to catalytic stain pattern in hepatocellular neoplasms, including HCC. So we compare them compare them with clustering. So again, we were looking for enhanced catalytic stain pattern, as you can see here. If you just look at the catalytic stain pattern, about 90% of cases show the catalytic stain pattern for clustering and polyclonal CA, but only 1/3 of the tumors show the catalytic stain pattern for CD10. But if you look at the enhanced, not just the catalytic stain pattern, but also strong, you see in this particular study we found that 63% of HCC showed strong catalytic stain pattern, but for polyclonal CA, only this enhanced catalytic stain pattern was only observed in about 14% or 17% in comparison to adjacent non-neoplastic liver tissue. So from this two studies, we think clustering is better than polyclonal CA and CD10 because clustering can not only tell this is a hepatocellular lesion, but it can also tell this is a malignant. It's not just hepatocellular, but also malignant hepatocellular neoplasm, because polyclonal CA and CD10 can only tell this is a hepatocellular, but they cannot tell this is a malignant. So this was published, presented in USCAP last year. So from this part of the study, we think there are significant molecular differences between hepatocellular adenoma and well-differentiated HCC, even though they are morphologically quite similar. And then we also found a unique set of genes that can be differentially expressed between these two different tumors. And then some of the genes that we discovered show unique or characteristic immunohistochemical staining patterns that can be useful to help us to distinguish hepatocellular neoplasms or tell the difference between malignant from benign liver nodule lesions, but also from non-hepatocellular lesions. This is particularly true for clustering. So we all know, in addition to the markers I summarized earlier during around 2003, and then in the following years, in the following few years, there are quite significant number of publications from European countries or from Japan that reported that other markers that can be used for for the distinction between HCC versus adenoma versus dysplastic nodules in the liver. And then, so this is one of the examples in this publication. So this study was published from French group. They basically used 3 different markers, galactose-3, glutamine synthetase, and HWang protein 70. They use this as a panel to tell the difference between HCC versus dysplastic nodule, which is another diagnostic challenge to liver pathologists. Sometimes we, particularly on liver biopsy, sometimes we may not be able to tell the difference between hybrid dysplastic nodule versus well-differentiated hepatocellular carcinoma. So by using these 3 markers, according to this study, if you use these 3 markers, if two of them show positivity, then that's malignant. So they use different combinations, and then they think, so their recommendation is if you use these 3 markers as a panel, and then if 2 of them show positivity, and then it's HCC. If we just one marker that's positive, that may not be. But the problem with our study is we went, after this paper was published, we went back to look at our database, to look at our data with the help of our molecular pathologists. We found that these markers were not terribly elevated in our study group because their expression levels were not that different between well-differentiated HCC versus adenoma in our study. So that's why we did not pick up these markers by our gene microarray studies. So after this studies, we also tried to test if galactose-3 was useful to our diagnosis for well-differentiated HCC. So we got 2 publications from those studies. The first paper was published in Archives of Pathology and Laboratory Medicine. We found that galactose-3 actually can be useful. It is overexpressed in about 70% of HCC, but not in adenoma, in focal nodular hyperplasia or nodular genital nodules. But the problem is that galactose-3 appears to be a better marker for poorly differentiated HCC. For well-differentiated HCC, the positivity rate is not that high. It's probably around 60% in our study. But for poorly differentiated, it's probably 70–80%. And then we also report that if we test the galactose-3 on needle pore biopsy, the sensitivity is not that high. So according to our study here, if you even add like focal positivity, which is defined by in our study by 5% to 50%, the positivity rate is below 50%. So that makes this marker less useful to our practice because a lot of times, if we can make a diagnosis of HCC by just HE and retinal state, we don't need markers. But for the different cases, like well-differentiated HCC, we do need markers, but the galactose-3 in that case may not be too helpful. One is not that frequently positive in well-differentiated HCC. Second, the sensitivity is fairly low on needle pore biopsy because the positivity can be focal. So I mean, nowadays, I don't know your experience here. Nowadays, I think if we have different cases and we use galactose-3, most time it's not that helpful. So this is a recent case that I encountered just this year. This is a 32-year-old man who presented with upper GI bleeding, and then EGD showed esophageal and gastric varices. Because of that, the patient had portal hypertension. Because of that, the patient underwent imaging studies which showed diffusely heterogeneous liver with a irregular contour, suggestive of diffuse liver disease. Basically, clinically, radiology suggests this is a cirrhotic liver. And then, in addition to that, they found a 2.7 centimeter lesion in the right hepatic lobe. So radiologists did biopsies from the lesion and the non-lesional liver. So this is a biopsy from the liver tissue outside the lesion. As you can see here, this is a benign liver tissue, and then but liver is not cirrhotic. So the radiologist think a patient is cirrhotic because there is irregular contour, and then also there's varices, and kinetica is cirrhotic. So the patient had a portal hypertension. But we can say here this liver is not cirrhotic, but there are some abnormalities here, because you can see here the portal tracts are too close here. You don't really see central veins here. So this portal tracts are too close. They are not normally arranged here. And then at higher power view, you can see most of the portal tracts here we show 3 portal tracts here. The portal tracts don't have good portal veins here. So the portal veins are obliterated. So this is a specific disease called obliterative portal velopathy, or hepatocellular sclerosis, which is a common etiology for portal hypertension or for non-cirrhotic portal hypertension. So that gave us an answer to explain why patient had portal hypertension, and it also explain the radiology findings because the patient got a hepatocellular sclerosis. So, so this is a biopsy from the liver lesion, and so this low power view, you can see the difference between this area and this area. So this area looks like a non-neoplastic area, and from here, and probably also this core shows abnormal appearance. So at high power view, you can see some spaces. Here, some are vacuoles, some are dilated sinusoids, and some probably pseudoacinar. So this is a lesion liver. So again, in this area, there's no good portal tracts. So it's a so on low power view, so this is a hepatocellular lesion. And high power view, you can see there's a frequent pseudoacini here. Some glycinated nuclei, some dilated sinusoids, and there's no portal structures. But the hepatocytes look so bland, it's really bland. And remember, patient is 32 years old, and there's no underlying liver disease. And then there's also isolated arteria here, which is a sign of neoplastic process, which can be seen in HCC, adenoma, dysphosphate nodule, and some people say you can even say this in focal nodular hyperplasia. But anyway, if you find that this unpaired arteria in the liver, is usually an indication that this is a neoplastic process. So again, at high power view, you can see the hepatocytes are quite bland. There's not much nuclear atypia. There's some glycinated nuclei, some pseudoacinar structures. So it's a neoplastic process. So this is a retinal stain. Again, retinal stain is still quite a reliable tool for us. And here's this part is the non-neoplastic area, and here's the neoplastic. So basically, what we look for to make a diagnosis of HCC is the widening of the hepatocyte place, more than 3 cells, or loss of reticular fibers, which we don't really see here. So here's a high power view in the neoplastic area. You can see the hepatocytes are not normal, and the hepatic plates are not normal because they are not linear, they are not radiating. And then they form these clusters. But if you look at the cell plates, they are not too widened. It's probably maximally 3 cells in thickness, and there's no significant retinal fiber loss. So again, so this is again diagnostic difficulty to us. Either this is a well differentiated HCC versus a hepatocellular adenoma to us. So now we have more stains, as we just mentioned. We have glycan 3, we have heat shock protein 70, we have CD34 gluten synthetase, and then so this is a gluten synthetase stain. Here, this is a non-neoplastic liver. Here you can see this is normal stain pattern. You can say normally GS or gluten synthetase will stain the central lobular hepatocytes around the central veins, the strong stain there. And then, so this is normal stain pattern. But in neoplastic area, we say diffuse stain. We don't see this perivenular stain pattern. But the stain intensity is not as strong as what we say in the normal hepatocytes here. So it's kind of like difficult to interpret. It's abnormal, but the stain intensity is not that high. And if you look at HWang protein 70, here's a normal liver tissue, non-neoplastic liver tissue, and there's some stain here. HWang protein 70 is supposed to show nuclear and cytoplasmic stain activity. But in the neoplastic area, the stain intensity actually is decreased. So at least it's not increased. Again, in this case, glycan 3 is negative. CD34 showed a patch stain, so it's not diffuse. But again, even if it is a diffuse stain, it does not mean this is a HCC. It can still be adenoma. But nowadays, we also know hepatocellular adenoma can be subclassified into 4 different subtypes. And then, so we have another panel for antibodies that we use to subclassify adenoma. So beta-catenin is one of the markers that we use to characterize beta-catenin mutated variant. Normally, we show the cells we show membrane stain like what we see here. If we say nuclear stain, and we think about beta-catenin mutated variant, which has a higher increased risk for malignant transformation. And then again, GS is just like I said, it just showed positivity is diffuse positivity, but the intensity is not as high as normal hepatocytes here. Here's another marker that characterizes one of the variants of for hepatocellular adenoma. This is liver fatty acid binding protein. Normally, we show strong stain here, like diffuse stain here on the right, and then if there is a mutation in this genes coding this protein, it will show a negative stain. So actually, in this tumor, in this lesion, the stain intensity is decreased. And here's another protein we use as a serum amyloid A. That's a marker to help diagnosis of inflammatory variant of hepatocellular adenoma. So this case actually shows some positivity. So this case is probably a case of adenoma which is not beta-catenin mutated. But the problem with this case is this case has some atypical features. First, this is a man, it's not a woman. Because we know hepatocellular adenoma is typically seen in reproductive aged women, and people usually take oral contraceptive use, but this is a male. And then in addition, there's also frequent pseudoester formation in this case, which is not typical of hepatocellular adenoma. You can probably say occasional pseudoester in adenoma, but if you see a lot, that's not a good sign. So this is a recent publication in Human Pathology, which gave some proposed features for atypical adenoma, or the term they called well-differentiated hepatocellular neoplasm of uncertain malignant potential, which is a long name, but they short it to HWang, H-U-M-P. So we sometimes call it HWang. So what qualifies for HWang? So if you look at HWang, they propose the features. So basically, if you have a case that you want diagnosis, it as hepatocellular adenoma, but then you say some other things such as focal reticulin loss, or focal cytological atypia, such as small cell change, which means this NC ratio, nuclear to cytoplasmic ratio, is increased. Or you say focal architecture atypia, which is defined by pseudoglandular formation or pseudoester formation in less than 5% tumor. Actually, in our case, we do say pseudoglandular formation or pseudoester formation, which is probably more than 5%. So just by that, we have some atypical features here. And then, of course, if you say beta-catenin mutation or beta-catenin nuclear stain or strong diffuse glutamine synthetase stain, that's also atypical. And then for patient characteristics, if you say if you want diagnosis, you want diagnose a adenoma, but the patient is a woman, but if the patient is older than 50 years old or younger than 15, or it's a male patient, no matter irrespective of age, then that's atypical. So in our case, it's probably better to qualify as atypical adenoma or HWang because it's a male patient. The tumor show frequent acinar formation, and then the morphological and then immunohistochemical findings are more consistent with a diagnosis of adenoma. So basically, this case was diagnosed as HWang. But if we diagnose the HWang, but if you say beta-catenin mutation, as either by molecular studies or by immunohistochemistry, and based on this study from UCLA, they think that's basically a type of very well, extremely well differentiated HCC. So in that case, if we make a diagnosis of hepatocellular adenoma in a male patient or in a female patient who is older than 50 years old or younger than 15 years old, and then we do all these studies. If we find a mutation or any signs of beta-catenin mutation, then it's a well differentiated HCC. So in our case, we didn't find the evidence of beta-catenin mutation, so we think diagnosis will be atypical adenoma or HWang. So in that case, we still need more markers better markers to help us to separate well differentiated HCC from adenoma, because it's still a challenge. Because we still have cases that we cannot make a clear-cut distinction between these two entities. We still need to give a different name, like atypical adenoma or HWang, which probably magic-wise probably does not make a huge difference because the treatment would be surgical resection if the patient is a good candidate. But from our point of view, we still need to develop more, to find more markers or better markers that can help us. So our focus at this moment is to look at a different marker that's called a hepatocyte-specific organic anion transporting peptide, or OATP1B3, which is a long short. But this is our preliminary studies. So here's a stain pattern in normal liver. It stains just like a glutamine synthetase. It stains perimedular or central lobular hepatocytes. It's kind of patchy. But in HCC, we only include like a few cases so far. This is a preliminary study. In HCC, we tested so far about like 10 cases. All HCC show negative stain. They lost expression. And here's a Geffen non-neoplastic liver. In HCC, in hepatocellular adenoma, they can either show diffuse or patchy or focal stain, but none of the cases show the completely loss of stain. In focal nodular hyperplasia, it shows this is a geographic or map-like pattern. So this marker has some similarity to glutamine synthetase, but the difference is for glutamine synthetase, HCC would show diffuse, strong and diffuse positivity, but for our new marker, HCC is actually completely negative. So it's quite encouraging to us. So we're going to test more cases in pig on biopsy specimens. So this is what we know about the immunomarkers for hepatocellular tumors nowadays. So we can divide these markers into two categories. One category would be hepatocellular markers. So arginase 1, which is a much better marker than HEPA1, it can be positive in about 90% of hepatocellular neoplasm, particularly including HCC. Again, polyclonal CA, CD10. So we don't really use these two quite often, most time we just use arginase and hepa. And albumin in situ hybridization is a new technology. It's not an immunomarker, it's more like an RNA in situ hybridization, which is quite good. But the problem with this marker is it can also be positive in cholangiocarcinoma. It's kind of strange because you would think albumin is not synthesized in bile duct iterate center. But this is quite useful marker to tell this is a hepatocellular or cholangiocarcinoma. And malignant markers, like we said, we have glycogen-3, HWang protein, 70, glutamine synthetase, CD34. I think clustering is quite promising to us. We haven't got to use in our lab, but we're doing that now. And now we are focused on this new marker, OATP1B3. I think this one, hopefully this is, we can add more useful marker to our daily practice. I think that's it. Thank you so much.
Any questions?
So what do you do at your institution for liver lesions? Do you prefer to do the cocktail with the heat shock protein 70, the glutamine synthase, and the glycan-3, or do you prefer to just do a single marker like the clustering?
Well, like I said, the clustering, we haven't got it into use in our lab. We are still in the testing validation stage because our lab, when we use a marker in our lab, the InLab want to test them by themselves. So we are doing that now. And then usually if on the requisition say this is liver lesion or liver mass, our protocol is we have upfront reticulin stain. So we call it TOHE and reticulin stain, that's it. So we look at if we can make a diagnosis, then that's it. If we have difficulty, then like if we think this is hepatocellular neoplasm, and then we do the panel, we do GS, glycan-3, CD34, and then HWang 70. Like I said, sometimes it helps, sometimes it doesn't. Yeah.
Have you looked into expression of clusterin in GPC negative HCCs?
In GPC,
in Reagan is,
oh yeah, that's right. That's a good question. Actually, there's a clustering. This is a specific pattern, canonical pattern, is expressing about 70% of HCC, which is quite consistent because we repeat it many times on different sets of samples. And then some glycan-3, yeah, definitely some glycan-3 negative tumors are positive for clustering. And then I think glycan-3 is kind of disappointing to us because initially we saw it's very good. Our initial study also showed about 70 or even 80% of HCC would be positive. But when you have like well differentiated HCC is most times negative. So I think actually probably more than 50% of GPC3 negative tumors are positive for clustering. Yeah.
So we have the same experience. It is not a very reliable marker for.
Right. And also HWang protein 70 is not that great either. And then because a lot of times it's not better than, the stain intensity is not stronger than adjacent non-neoplastic liver tissue. So it's not that great either. I think maybe GS is more reliable, more reproducible, and the CD34 is also more reproducible to us. Yeah.
Okay, I think we're going to have a resident session. If you have any other questions, and then after 10:15, we will be available.